Max Verstappen is one of the most disgruntled participants of the Miami GP, especially considering how his team failed him during the entire weekend. The four-time world champion made quite unusual mistakes in turn one, fighting against both McLaren drivers, and it seems like this was too big of a task to handle, even for a giant like Max. But with him having just a 6-point advantage over Russell in the Drivers' Championship in the third position, can we see a potential activation of the Drivers' Clause? And if so, where can Verstappen land from 2026 onwards? There was no question about it, the Miami GP went utterly bad for Red Bull and Verstappen, who managed to finish P4 in a very highly anticipated race by both McLaren drivers as well as Mercedes. It was obvious that the RB21 was on par with the W16 during the race, as Verstappen never managed to make a big difference to Antonelli and Russell when he got passed by Norris. Nevertheless, he used a lot of his tyres and still came up with nothing, as both of the McLaren drivers managed to get away pretty quickly at the race and seal another 1-2 dominant win for the Woking based squad. Verstappen was adamant that the race was more or less over and he wanted to go home after everything that happened in it, and elaborating further on this frustrating weekend, he said, "It just wasn't good enough. 0.0% chance. Of course, I did try something with those McLarens. I had nothing to lose anyway, so I had a little fun. I couldn't make anything more out of it anyway. A virtual safety car, it can happen. It doesn't really matter if you finish third or fourth. The brakes are more often a problem, so we have to work on that. I just couldn't follow well. As soon as I wanted to go even a little bit harder, the tyres got too hot again and you just couldn't attack again." At one point, I thought, never mind. I kept the difference within 5 seconds, but I was like, I'm going home. But now there is a different picture in the Drivers' Championship, one that Verstappen isn't quite used to seeing as often. A resilient McLaren driver in Piastri. More often than not, we've been able to see how the Dutchman bullied his way in the fights against Norris in 2024 and 2025 as well. But with Piastri, the situation is different. The praise was already there from Max during the last race weekend in Jeddah, but now he felt a direct pressure from Oscar, who was also very surprised with the pace that the MCL39 had throughout the race. Still, this weekend gave us something we never thought we'd see in a close period unless Max retired from the race. During the sprint event, Max finished outside of the points because of the 10-second penalty that he received from the unsafe release of his pit stop, and it was the first time that he crossed the line outside of the top 10 since Belgium 2016. This means that a streak almost 10 years old came to a halt, and it is definitely Red Bull's fault, something that the team admitted themselves after the sprint race. But the fact is that Verstappen will have situations like the one he had with Piastri and Norris much more frequently in the future in 2025, with the difference that Piastri is not going to yield under pressure, as he has a very similar racing style compared to Max. Even Oscar himself knew that the pace of the MCL39 was too good not to be utilised to perfection, and when talking about it to a greater extent, the Aussie was quite bullish when it came to the chances of getting past Verstappen in the race. Further elaborating, "It was tough at the beginning trying to get past Max. I tried pretty hard to get past with everything still on my car. It was not easy, but I picked my moments when I needed to. I could tell that we had a lot of pace from the get-go today, and it was going to be a matter of when I got past, not if. I felt like I did a pretty good job of that, then built a gap." The race today was pretty solid. Ultimately, I won it, but I think the likelihood of winning many races after qualifying fourth is pretty low. I did a lot of things right today, but there was definitely some good fortune as well, and a very quick car. The fact remains that we're seeing a version of Verstappen that we haven't seen in a long time because of the Red Bull's dominance. The Dutchman is now forced to fight as hard as he can for every position possible, sometimes even going over the limit, as he often does with Lando. Many are calling this race, and they would probably be in the right, because we didn't see Oscar struggle getting past Verstappen nearly as much as Lando did, which potentially cost the Brit a chance of getting back at his teammate in the race. But after losing 4 positions at the start of the race and having to climb back to P2, Norris feels like the racecraft of Verstappen is something that he should work on. Elaborating, "Verstappen is fighting hard, but it's up to him to do that. He is ruining his own race. He is not racing very smartly. He probably could have finished third today, and he didn't because of that. So yeah, he is fighting. This is always expected, but that's what it is." And of course, we cannot help but note how Red Bull is clinging to every option possible outside of racing, which was the yellow flag incident with Russell. Max felt like the Brit didn't lift when the yellow flag came on from Bortoletto's retirement, which is something he reported to his team, and a couple of laps later the Dutchman was told by his team to keep within 5 seconds of Russell. Even Max was surprised by this message, but he still managed to complete the race 2.3 seconds behind the Brit, who on the other hand managed to get away without a penalty from the protest that Red Bull did against the Brackley-based squad. When talking about it to a greater extent, Horner explained why his team did what they did, adding, "We felt that Russell has done something that is in breach of the regs as they are written, so that's why we put in a protest today. More than anything, you want clarity. The regulations say there should be a reduction in speed. It doesn't talk about a lift, it talks about a reduction in speed. We clearly did that, and that is why Max flagged it immediately from what he saw within the cockpit." And what is the most important thing that we need to be looking at here? Well, for starters, it's the Imola upgrade that would put Verstappen in a very good position if it turns out to be a problem fixer for all of the car's issues. Of course, nothing can be solved with just one upgrade package, and this is just the first part that comes in Imola. The second one will come in Barcelona, where literally the entire grid hopes that the MCL39 will see a big drop in performance because of the clampdown on the front wing flexibility. But the gap now is too big to believe that a couple of races can change the entire narrative, and even though qualifying has never been closer, the pace that the MCL39 has is just out of this world. This is why Verstappen wasn't joking when he said that nobody would see him in the race if he was in one of those cars, something that Norris found very immaculate to say. All in all, even Zak Brown had a talk with Verstappen not that long ago, as the American boss of McLaren sincerely hopes that the four-time world champion will remain in Red Bull and won't go to Mercedes. Elaborating on the potential shape-shifting transfer in the world of Formula 1, as well as how McLaren was in this fight not that long ago, Brown said, "Oh yes, that phone call. It is up to me to explore the market to know what is going on. At the time, I was also negotiating with my own driver, Piastri. I had to be able to assess whether a stone might fall elsewhere, resulting in a domino effect. It could have sparked interest in my driver. That is why I contacted Verstappen, and let me put it this way, during the phone call, I got exactly the information I needed. I look at Mercedes' track record and body language when it comes to engines. They seem very confident about it. If you ask me to look at the current situation, I would rather see Max driving for Red Bull than Mercedes." The contract clause is going to be the hottest topic in the upcoming days, especially if you look at the drivers' standings and see that Verstappen is just 6 points ahead of Russell as we speak, with a very big threat that he could be outside of the top 3 drivers by the time the summer arrives. With all this in mind, do you think that Verstappen would remain loyal to Red Bull? And more importantly, which team do you think he'd pick if he goes away from the Austrian squad? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.